You know what I've learned? Standing in the rain at 2 in the morning, when nobody's watching and even God seems to look away. It's that a man's worth out here isn't measured by the shine of his shoes or the cut of his suit. Hell, sometimes it ain't measured at all. You think a ring on your finger makes you more than the last old soul who limped down this boulevard? Yeah, that's what the kid said to me that night, voice sharp as a razor. No idea the weight a man can carry when his whole life has been about holding the line, about standing up, alone, in the dark. My name's Whitmore. Justice Whitmore. You might have seen the name in headlines, maybe even spat it out over dinner debates about right and wrong, about law and dignity and all those things folks pretend to care about until the police lights start flashing in their rear view. But I'll tell you, none of that means a damn thing when the rain falls and the world gets quiet enough that all you can hear is your own heart, thudding in your chest like a judge's gavel. That night, the city was washed blank, every light warped and smeared by rain, every shadow longer than it had a right to be. You do that when you've lived long enough to know which steps might be your last. I fixed my tie, glanced at my reflection in the car's mirror, not for vanity, but to remind myself who I am underneath the skin, underneath every scar time had etched across my face. Equal before law. That's what my ring says, and that night, it caught the lamplight. A patrol car sliding up with that quiet menace only cops can conjure. The door slammed, and Brantley got out, boots hitting the street with all the subtlety of a judge slamming his gavel. He wasn't old, wasn't young either. Somewhere in that angry middle space where men confuse power with purpose. He strode up, knuckles wide around his flashlight, already pissed off, already looking for a fight. He pounded on my window, shouting something about my plates, about the law, about getting on my knees. "Don't make me repeat myself, old man," he snarled. And for a second, I could see the ghost of his own doubt flicker behind his eyes, like he needed me to play along, to make his night make sense. But I just looked at him and said. His fingers twitched near his gun, and for a heartbeat, I saw fear. Not mine. His. The ring on my finger caught the light, and something in him recoiled, like he knew, deep down, that authority borrowed from a badge can't measure up against conviction carved by decades of surviving. Then the world compressed, him barking, rain hammering, my own breath fogging the air. He tried to break me, tried to yank me down, slam my wrists against the hood, but pain, well, pain's just another language at my age. You learn to translate it into patience. Every scrape, every bruise, proof you're still here, still choosing not to bend. And then, out of nowhere, a question slipped from my mouth, soft, but heavy as a tombstone. "What do you see when you look at me?" The kid froze, the gun trembling against my head. For a moment, the city faded, the sirens, the shadows, even the storm. Just me and him, two men standing at the edge of something ancient and ugly. His grip on the gun wavered, sweat and rain mixing on his face, and I knew he wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring down the barrel of every lie he'd ever told himself about strength, about justice, about what separates a man from a monster. He lunged, desperate, a knife flashing out, and I didn't flinch. I met his eyes and told him, "You think killing me kills your failures?" His face crumpled, his whole body a riot of regret and rage. And then he was sobbing, shoulders shaking, blade clattering to the ground, his confession barely a whisper in the rain. I failed myself. Knees buckling, hands clutching at his own head like he could rip out the poison by force. I watched, silent, unmoving, a living monument to the consequences of a life lived looking away. The storm roared on. The city didn't care. No headlines. No jury. Just two men and the unblinking eye of a street lamp. In the end, Brantley's breath rattled out, and he collapsed. A broken man on the asphalt, haunted by every decision he'd made to be judge, jury, and executioner in the dark. He looked up at me, pleading for absolution I was never here to give. "Save me like you saved him," he begged. "But some things can't be handed out. They have to be earned." I stepped away, the rain washing his blood, his guilt, but never the truth. The ring on my finger flashed again, words burning through the mist, equal before law. That's all I ever promised, all I ever could. As I reached my car, a leaf drifted down, landed soft on my shoulder, a quiet sign the night was ready to move on, even if we weren't. Sliding into the driver's seat, I stared at my reflection in the windshield, one half illuminated. My name glowing in pale letters, Justice Whitmore. Before I pulled away, I whispered, maybe to the storm, maybe to the boy I once was, there is no crowd in true justice. No applause, no closure, just the endless work of facing who we are and who we let ourselves become when no one is watching. The storm had slackened, but the echo of the night, the choices, the failures, the cold weight of consequence, hung in the air, refusing to fade. So I'll ask you, as the rain washes this city clean, what state do you live in? Where you're from? Does dignity get heard? Or does skin color still speak louder? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's see where justice stands silent and where it finally speaks. Your move. You ever think about the way a city forgets? How every drop of rain wipes clean a sidewalk stained by 1,000 silent wars. Let me back up a sec. After that night, after Brantley's collapse in the gutter, his knees bloody, his breath coming out in ragged shreds, I sat behind the wheel for a long time, letting the rain thrum out a slow, relentless rhythm on the roof. I could have driven away, left it to the next shift, to the paperwork, the headlines, the endless cycle of outrage that burns hot for a minute, then disappears. But there's a sickness that comes from looking away. So I stayed. I watched through the fogged glass as Brantley's body curled in on itself, as he clawed at the pavement, mouthing silent apologies to ghosts only he could see. You know, the part folks never want to admit is that justice, real justice, doesn't come in a siren song or a courtroom verdict. Sometimes, it's just a man breaking open in the rain, realizing the only person he's been fighting all these years is himself. I remembered a time, decades back, when I stood just as broken. The courthouse was older then, real wood. None of this plastic veneer, the kind that creaks underfoot and smells like 100 years of dust and regret. I was the young one back then, still raw, still believing you could save everyone if you just wrote enough words, argued hard enough, cared enough. But that night, after sending a good man home, Brantley's father, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not gratitude, not relief, just a deep, endless sadness. It was a repeat, a curse passed down, father to son, each generation trying to outpace the shadow, trying to prove strength by refusing to break, even as they shattered inside. That's what the rain was for. It washed the blood, the grime, but it never quite touched the stain under your skin. That's the thing no badge, no ring, no jury can change. The patrol car's lights spun a slow, dizzy spiral across the empty storefronts. Somewhere in the haze, another cruiser arrived. Officer Jenkins, face young, eyes wide. Unsure if he should salute or run. He saw Brantley first, saw the broken shell, the gun glinting in the gutter, the old man in the suit still upright, untouchable. What happened? He asked. The reckoning no camera caught. Jenkins knelt beside Brantley, tried to lift him up, hands trembling more than they should. He's breathing, Jenkins whispered. You want me to call it in? I shook my head, slow, deliberate. Let him finish, I said. This is his trial now. And Jenkins, poor kid, just nodded, because he saw something in my eyes that told him not to argue. It's funny how authority bends, how respect shifts in the presence of someone who's already survived 100 storms. For a minute, it was quiet, just the rain, the hush, Jenkins' soft prayers under his breath. Then, somewhere deep in the city, I heard sirens, the slow, keening wail that promises order but so often brings only more chaos. I knew what was coming. You're Justice Whitmore, Jenkins said quietly, almost reverent. My father, he always talked about you. Said you did things right, even when it cost you. I looked at him. The kid not much older than Brantley when I first met his father. Doing things right isn't the same as being right, I replied. Sometimes you have to carry both. Didn't scream. His eyes stared past me, past Jenkins, into some private void where even the storm couldn't follow. I watched him go, the ring on my hand cold, heavy, more shackle than shield. Jenkins lingered, watching as the paramedics worked, then turned to me. You ever get tired of being the last man standing? He asked. I thought about it, about all the nights like this. All the faces, all the verdicts that never healed what they broke. Tired's not the word, I said. You just learn to live with the echoes. A twist. Yeah, there's always a twist. That's when Jenkins' radio crackled. Possible ID, suspect's father cleared by Whitmore in 96. Justice involved at scene. Media en route. He looked at me, realization dawning. A sharp, painful light. History doesn't repeat. It just refuses to leave. I muttered. Tell them what you saw tonight, not what they want to hear. Jenkins nodded, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. But I knew the world out there wouldn't care for nuance. They'd see only the old stories, the old lines drawn in blood and rain. Before I left, I turned back to the boulevard, to the place where Brantley's blood and tears still mingled with the storm water. I whispered, not to him, not to the cameras waiting somewhere in the dark, but to every soul still wrestling with their own reflection. Existing isn't living. Redemption isn't handed. You choose your cage. As I walked away, Jenkins called after me. Will you be all right? Sir, I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was the oldest question in the world. All right is a place you pass through, not somewhere you stay. My car was still there, waiting. The city was already moving on, already forgetting. But not everyone. Not the ones who saw what happened when the storm stripped everything else away. So let me ask you again. Friend, where do you stand when the rain comes? Are you the judge, the broken, or the witness? Drop your answer below. Let's see who still believes that justice can mean something, even if it hurts. Even if nobody ever says thank you. The storm will pass. But the truth? The truth stays.